welcome everybody to Nuts and Bolts Sports. I am Raj, that is Jordan, and we got a lot to discuss today.
What an intro, though. How cool
Yeah,
was
what an
that?
intro. That was our great social team, Marissa in particular, live on social now, creating that incredible looking thing for us. That was so much fun.
She
Honestly.
made me look good. That's pretty damn hard to do. So
I love that. I love that thing when she sent it to us. We were both just raving about it. It looks incredible, and I'm really glad that we have that sort of intro to come into this show. I want to spend more time raving about the intro, but we've got
things to talk about.
Yeah, we've got a heated episode in store for you guys. So let's just get right into it. We're coming off the heels of yesterday's two big upsets: Orlando upsetting Milwaukee and Portland upsetting the Lakers. This is the first time since 2003 that the 8 seed upset the 1 seed in game one of the both series. Such a rare occurrence, 17 years since the last time it happened, kind of a crazy thing. There's obviously a lot to discuss, with the Milwaukee series and whatnot, but I think Jordan's got some thoughts on the Lakers series, so we're just going to dive right into it. Jordan, why don't you kick us off?
So obviously a lot of hype going into last night's matchup. You had the ever hot Dame Lillard and the Portland Trailblazers going against my Lakers. What you saw was an absolute it's hard to find the right adjective. You can throw disappointing, you can throw pitiful, you can throw everything there. The bottom line is they didn't show up. Pretty much nobody really showed up in any regard. There are games in this bubble where Dame Lillard has taken over and won. He's had the 51, the 60, everything like that. In those games, you can't do anything but you tip your cap and move on. Last night was not one of those games. I felt that the Lakers really let it slip away. They had multiple chances in the fourth to assert themselves on both ends of the floor, and even at the foul line, and failed to do so. And it's one of those things like it's like, where do you start? And I'd probably start with the shooting. 5 of 32 from 3 was pretty awful. And a decent amount of the looks they weren't like a lot of contested looks. Like LeBron was penetrating and then was able to find open guys. And you just had some duds. I mean, Danny Green was terrible. He was 4 of 12. Caldwell Pope was 0 of 9. Did you even play? Kuzma was the best shooter other than LeBron, and he was only 5 of 14 and 1 of 5 from 3, including an absolute clanker off the side of the backboard at one point. So that hurt them. Defensively, I thought they were all over the place. I thought Vogel was going to have a much better game plan put together. And don't be wrong, there's no stopping Dame and CJ and those guys, but I didn't think there was much semblance of a game plan. They didn't seem to know what they were doing necessarily on pick and rolls, whether they should switch, hedge. If they did hedge, they were out way too far, and they were getting beat with Nurkic and Whiteside rolling to the basket. They just didn't seem to have anything together. Their bigs played pretty poor all around, including Anthony Davis. I think that was a big step backward for him last night. He had a rookie and Gabriel on him, and I thought when I saw that in the lineup with Collins out, I thought he was going to feast. He did not. He got to the foul line a bunch, but didn't make a good percentage of his free throws per his numbers, and his jump shooting was atrocious. And then in terms of LeBron, at times brilliant. His passing is still up there with anybody in history, not let alone the league. And he set some guys up that were, you're like, wow, how does he see them? How does he have the right spin and English on the ball to get it to him? And then I just felt, and you, I know, kind of differ with opinions on this, but I felt in the fourth he was just too passive. I felt it seemed like they were running the same thing. It was post up with Gary Trent from like 18 feet. And then it would end up being just a pass to Caldwell Pope, and then Caldwell Pope would brick a shot, and they were one and done, and that was it. So just really, really frustrating all around. And you give credit to Dame and CJ; they made some big shots late. Gary Trent made a big 3 late, obviously to seal it. So they did their part as well, but just really disappointing for the Lakers. I've been flip-flopping all day with whether or not I'm worried, because we live in that era of everybody overreacts on social media right away, and it's like, oh my God, Lakers are done. Charles Barkley is pulling out the brooms for the Blazers and all that ridiculous stuff. And I wouldn't go that far. However, the Lakers absolutely have to come out with some kind of better game plan. It was pretty pitiful on game one. And I could go on. We could do this for 30 minutes, and you saw firsthand how frustrated I was last night. I've been able to calm my emotions throughout the day. The only last thing I'll end with this, and it really bothered me, was after the game, the big quote that was surfacing was LeBron saying that, he's going to keep saying that it's not the same without the fans. The fans aren't there. We get that. We've known that for 2 months that the fans are not going to be there. And yes, it stinks. And I know sports, you feed off the crowd, you feed off the energy. I get it. It's a noticeable difference. Even watching the game, I wish they would pump in more crowd music because sometimes I feel like the home team, whoever's home, doesn't quite get the full advantage that they could get even in the bubble. But at the same time, you're a professional athlete. You've been doing this a long time. If you can't get up for a playoff game against one of the best players in the league, in Dame Lillard, and you're trying to win a championship, I don't know what to tell you. Like nobody else has made this a major complaint. I haven't seen anybody, consistently whine about it. To me, being in the bubble is not a terrible thing. They don't have to go to Portland. The Lakers stink in Portland. Historically, they're terrible. So they're saving themselves. They don't have to travel. LeBron gets to rest. They don't have to go anywhere. They get to just stay. And I get it. Everyone's kind of getting antsy. That's kind of the rumor is they're going to speed up these playoff series because guys are really starting to be tired of being in the bubble. And I'm sure it's a very unique experience for these rich millionaires who are used to their big houses. And I get it. It's a custom of living. I understand that it's been a little difficult, but this is your job. You're getting paid to go out there and play basketball. You're not getting paid to cater to the fans or to do anything. Like, you have to adapt just like we do in our everyday lives. We have to adapt. And so to hear that was really frustrating. I thought he would put the onus, on himself and AD and say that they had to play better. And instead it was, I miss the fans. It's like, okay, great. Like, figure it out. So bottom line, they have a lot to figure out. I have some faith that they can because, again, it is LeBron James. He is known for making, good adjustments and changing his play to cater what his team needs game to game, especially after a loss. But there were some big concerns that were highlighted in game one.
A lot to cut in. Yeah, no. I think you did a pretty good job of not going Stephen A. Smith on us right there. So I'm pretty proud of you about that. But
it's blasphemous. It's blasphemous.
There's so much to dissect from this game, but also what you said, and I think you touched on a lot of great points. And I know you're going to give me shit about that after we get off this broadcast. But first off, I'm going to express a lot of opinions today that I don't feel like I've expressed to anybody that have both frustrated me about the league and frustrated me about fans of the league. Mm-hmm. I'm going to start with the Lakers bigs, and in particular Anthony Davis. I don't think Anthony Davis is as nearly as good of a player as everybody else thinks he is. And the Pelicans, he had good players around him. He had Drew Holiday, for example, an all-star point guard, one of the best two-way guards in the league. He could not win. He went to two playoffs and won one series, I believe it was. That's unacceptable for a player that everybody is touting as the MVP. Completely unacceptable. That is not allowed whatsoever. You cannot praise a player the way that people praise Anthony Davis if he can't get out there and win a playoff series like that. That's just I do not think that Anthony Davis has been sort of the notch in this team's belt that a lot of other people have. I think the sort of point that you can hit on that's most important about that is that people are claiming that he's going to be Defensive Player of the Year. I predicted him to be Defensive Player of the Year on this podcast. I don't think he's deserving of Defensive Player of the Year because the Lakers are better on defense when he's not playing. I don't think Anthony Davis is the piece that this team needed. And you're going to get I'm not doubting the fact that he's incredibly talented. And he's, from so many different perspectives of the game, offensively and defensively, he is extremely talented. But to call him an MVP caliber player is unacceptable. We have not seen that from him. And last night was the biggest proof of that. He can drop 28 points empty, the most empty 28 points I've ever seen in the NBA. If a player like that, of that caliber, of that status, is dropping 28 points, that team should be in that game and not fighting back from behind in the fourth quarter. That is not what a winner does. I think I'll leave it on Anthony Davis about that because I don't want to brag on him too much.
That's a good point. No, I don't see anything wrong with that.
Yeah, and from the LeBron perspective now, that's the big thing that's going on Twitter. And I agree with you 100%. He should not be going out there and saying, I need fans out there. Like, that's, you're LeBron James. You are the greatest basketball player in the world, and you need to step up and show up in that situation. I completely understand that. Mm-hmm. What I think is wrong about the way that people are handling this game in this situation is they're pinning a lot of it on LeBron. First off, it's a triple-double. It's a historic triple-double in terms of assists and whatnot. Like this, he put up crazy numbers. Was it 25, 12, and 16, I believe it was. And the biggest thing that I see going around is the hesitancy.
23, 17, and 16, actually.
There you go. So still crazy numbers. People are saying that he's passive and he's hesitant, and I don't disagree with that. I think he was passive and he's hesitant, but I think he's passive and he's hesitant because everybody around him is garbage. I think, the shooters were not making shots. I saw somebody tweeting that LeBron's going to be snitching on Danny Green to get him out of the bubble, saying that he's breaking protocol or whatever. Like, and I wouldn't blame him. And here's the thing about LeBron. I'm wearing my Cavs shirt right now. I'm wearing my Cleveland shirt. I've watched more LeBron play than I feel pretty comfortable in saying I've watched more, because I started watching basketball when LeBron was a rookie, and I've watched almost every single one of his games from this point. Even when he was in Miami and with the Lakers, I've watched almost every single one of his games his entire career. I've watched a lot of LeBron James. LeBron James is going to probably end his career as the number one scorer in the NBA history. He's not going to be known for his scoring. He's going to be known for his playmaking. He makes everybody around him better. When he went to Miami and they won championships, it's because he rejuvenated Dwayne Wade's career after all those injuries and whatnot, after the downfall that he was on. He rejuvenated his career. He gave Chris Bosh the best years of his career, made Chris Bosh into a possible Hall of Famer. Chris Bosh was not going to be a Hall of Famer when he was just in Toronto. Now he probably will be, because he played beside LeBron. If LeBron is going into the high post and backing his way and trying to figure out what he can do there, that's what he does. That's what he did in Cleveland. That's how he set up players. Like, that's how he made J.R. Smith a great player in Cleveland. He made Kyrie Irving a great player in Cleveland. Despite what the numbers might show from points alone, he made Kevin Love into a great player because he gave Kevin Love some of his most efficient years in his career. LeBron is going to create out of the high post because that's what he does. And when he gets into the high post and he's just standing there waiting for something to happen, it's because nobody around him is doing anything. Danny Green is just waiting there. Alex Caruso is waiting there. Kyle Kuzma, I hate Kyle Kuzma. I'm sorry, I hate Kyle Kuzma. He's a terrible player. This team, I don't care if people call me biased because I am a Cavs fan and I'm going to support LeBron. I don't feel like I'm supporting this off some baseless argument. I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of the way that LeBron James plays, and I feel like I'm backing it up. Another thing, and I don't mean this to sort of like target you or signal you out anyway, but I saw you retweeted that one play where LeBron was, on the left side of the
Gottlieb, we pointed it out.
So
go into detail about that, because like we both kind of had different views on it, and I'd like to hear.
I saw you retweet, and I responded to you directly just because we communicate about this kind of stuff. But I saw so many people going after that play. When that side opens up on the floor and LeBron is going to attack the basket, what he needs is for the defense to rotate. There's three defenders there. He's got Trent, the guy, I believe it was Lillard that's on him, and Nurkic next to the basket. He can't attack 3-on-1 there. What he needs to do is swing the ball the opposite way. KCP needs to continue to swing the ball to the opposite side. KCP fucked that play up, and I'm sorry for my language, but he took that ball with 7 seconds left on the shot clock and attacked the basket. And that's not how basketball works. That's not what you do. That's not on LeBron. If you swing the ball properly, the defense is caught off guard. It either opens up the back door for LeBron to come back or get a pass inside, or it opens up a 3-point shot in the corner. That's how basketball works. I don't think that can be pinned on LeBron. I think that pin is pinned on everybody that's surrounding LeBron. Nobody showed up yesterday on the Lakers, and I don't think LeBron played up to his caliber. But I think a lot of what LeBron struggled with yesterday is because his surrounding pieces did not help him become a better player. I think that's it.
Wow. I can't say that I saw that coming. You said you had some thoughts, but I didn't think.
I'm getting very frustrated about people going after LeBron, and it is I don't care. I said, come at me.
We like who we like.
Yeah, but I also feel like it's been going on for so long. Let's talk about how Giannis Antetokounmpo didn't score almost in the entire fourth quarter of yesterday's game. The MVP player, nobody's going after him, right?
Right. And I think that's tough too, because they played so early, and then there was the buildup that it just how Twitter works. It's just what have you done? What's been on Twitter lately, and that's what it turned into.
LeBron is the same guy who just a few months ago everybody was saying he's going to be MVP, and now everybody's saying he's washed. Like, come on, guys, calm down. It's one game. This is LeBron. We all know that LeBron does the feel-out game. It might be a bit of a meme at this point, but it's true. I've seen LeBron lose so many game ones and go on to win 4 straight games in a row, or win 3 and then lose 1 and then win the next game. I'm not worried. I feel pretty confident still about my 5-game prediction here about the Lakers winning. I am frustrated with people, the way they're treating this entire situation. I'll stop there.
I will say the one thing that I guess through all of it, whether you can disagree on the shot selection or the passiveness and certain other things of the game, the one thing that I was concerned with, and I don't know if you saw it too, was like when he did attack the basket, it seemed like, and again, it could just be him, a little bit of rust, different situation. It seemed like the legs weren't quite there. Like he got blocked by Whiteside pretty bad in the fourth quarter. Yeah. And I don't think it was necessarily like, I'm not like trashing him. I don't think he had the legs to like get up and elevate. It just seems like sometimes, and this has been kind of the theme the last year and a half, because he is getting older, and that's just what happens.
You're 37 now, right? 36.
Yeah. So that was a little concerning, like physically, to see that. I guess we probably should obviously go to other games as well, because there were some other great games. But I will say the ending thing that I would have is that, through all of it, and doing around the bench and the other players that were terrible. And I think that's unanimous agreement from everybody in the world that they were pretty awful.
Yeah.
The only thing I would ask of AD and LeBron is just, how it is. Like, they are the two-star players, so they're going to get the headlines when they win, and they're going to get the headlines when they lose, whether unfair or just for both reasons. Sometimes when they win, some guys have better games, but they don't always get highlighted because it's the LeBron, show, or Anthony Davis thing. So, how it is. Like, the blame pie gets cut and passed around. So I guess, and they've been doing this for years. But the AD thing is also concerning. I definitely agree with you. Like, he seemed, I don't know. I was going through my, notes last night and thinking, he did only make 2 playoffs in New Orleans. And you know how it happens. Like, some guys aren't always built to play in pressure in New York, Los Angeles, Boston, big cities. And you almost wonder if, there's no pressure in New Orleans. So, he balled out in the playoffs. Like, he had very good playoff numbers up until last night. But was there any pressure in New Orleans? No, they were just happy to be there. So, again, it's one game. You know how it is. Everybody overreact. I've definitely probably overreacted throughout the night today. But there are things that I need to see addressed, and it starts with LeBron and AD. Like, they need to come out, and I hope they set the tone early tomorrow. That's my biggest thing. Is come out, set the tone early, make Portland play from behind instead of trying to play catch up the whole game, because Lakers clearly don't have the shooting to do that. So I'm hoping that they come out, set the tone on both ends. They had some okay stretches defensively yesterday where they ramped it up and they went on runs, but it was 2-3 minutes. Yeah, it needs to be 4, 5, 6 minutes at a time. Yeah. So we'll see tomorrow, same time, same place, same everything. Nothing's going to change. Everything's going to be the same tomorrow. Same lineup. Vogel's not changing anything. So we'll have to see how they come out tomorrow. But certainly a disappointing and shocking start for the 1 season. I would have saw it. And we can talk a little bit, I guess, about the Bucks too, because they did lose. They honestly got spanked.
They had a little bit of control, and then they sort of lost it and completely unraveled.
Their shooting was just almost as bad as the Lakers. And I thought their defense, which has been touted all year as being, historically good, and, Giannis, Defensive Player of the Year, Brook Lopez, Middleton, they could not stop a DJ Augustine and Nikola Vucevic pick and roll. Yeah. Orlando ran, I felt like, I don't know plays as much as you do, but I felt like Orlando ran the same 4 plays all game.
Pretty much.
Just variations of it, which I guess is basketball. But it ended with Vucevic being wide open from 24 feet. And he knocked down he was phenomenal, but he also had, warm-up jumpers. And I think that's, again, Milwaukee could come back and win the next 4, but it just seemed surprising that Milwaukee would play that way. So I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
No, Vooch probably had the game of his life yesterday. It was kind of insane to see what he was doing out there. Not that he's a bad player, but he's an all-star. He's a former all-star. We can't discount that he has the ability to do that. But we've never seen this Orlando team actually show that.
They're good for game 1 wins. Apparently we should bet on them every year for game 1.
And I don't expect that to, again, similar with, and this already blew up everybody's bracket, basically saying that Milwaukee is going to sweep here. But I don't expect Milwaukee to lose any more of those games. And this one I can't quite pinpoint the same way that I can the Lakers, just because it was a lot of just pick and roll, and Milwaukee could just not figure out the proper defense. I didn't get to watch the full game just because I was working, but and catching the highlights and catching the clips and whatnot, I was paying close attention to that. And it was just, the switch was not happening at the proper time, and Vooch was just getting in that mid, and he's a good mid-range shooter. And he's good from, in that sort of range that he was scoring a lot of his points in. He's very good at that shot, and whenever he's open there, he will most likely score it. I think Milwaukee just kind of went into this game. The best explanation I have for it is Milwaukee went into this game completely underestimating, because, Aaron Gordon was out and somebody else was missing.
Jonathan Isaac didn't play either, and Mike Carter Williams. But, I think they definitely overlooked them. It just seems like the right, I guess, combination of things. The afternoon game, the first game, you're kind of sleepwalking through the warm-ups and everything, and then you got to play. You think it's Orlando, no Aaron Gordon, no Isaac. So I think a combination of things. I wouldn't be stunned if Milwaukee sweeps the next 4, but it definitely blew up a lot of people's brackets and parlays. For those of you gambling out there, and Milwaukee, all they had to do was win, and they just couldn't do it. We can talk about, if you want, a little bit more fun game with also some controversy. Clippers Mavs opened up in a phenomenal fashion.
Yeah, 2 days ago, right? 2 days ago, we had that game right after we ended recording this podcast a couple days.
Yeah, we talked. We were finishing with that series. We were saying how fun it's going to be, and I walked in, and the Clippers were up like 18-4, and I'm like, uh-oh. I was like, okay, well, Mavericks are going to show up, and then they did, and the Mavericks got hot, and they kept getting hot, and they showed why they have a historically good offense. And then we had some controversy in the third quarter with Porzingis getting tossed out. What did you think about that? He got a cheapo technical in the first quarter, and then he got the second one there, kind of partially trying to break up the scuffle, partially giving a little shove. But I personally didn't think either technical was warranted. Nobody seemed to think that. What did you think about the whole instance?
So here, I have complicated thoughts about this as well, because and you yourself said that you didn't want this to be the story, but it is going to be the story of this game because it swung the game. Mavericks were up until that point, and then they completely fell apart when Porzingis went out. I don't think the first technical was warranted. When he kind of just pumped his arm, I don't think that was warranted. I think the second one was actually more warranted than the first one. Agreed. That being said, in that situation, I have complicated feelings about this because, I think it was Chuck yesterday on Inside was saying something about how a ref would tell him if he had another tech to calm down. And I don't necessarily agree with that being the case. I think it has to Porzingis has to rely more on himself to understand that he has a tech and he needs to control himself.
You got to be smart.
Yeah, and in that situation, I was expecting double techs, and that is what ended up happening, I believe. And so, but I had completely forgotten that Porzingis had the first tech. So at that moment, I was just like, oh God, he's gone. What just happened? And then I remembered the first one. That being said, there does need to be a little bit of situational analysis from the refs. I don't necessarily know if I'm completely on board with that sort of line of thinking, but we see it time and time again. So I think that there needs to be at least consistency from the refs, and that's something that we've struggled a lot with here in the bubble, especially. And if that's the kind of call that they wouldn't make on a player like a LeBron, I don't think you can make that kind of call on a player like a Porzingis because he is still pretty pivotal to his team. And if you're not going to make that call on Porzingis, then you can't make that call on somebody like a Michael Carter-Williams if that was to happen to him. It needs to be consistent across the board, and it's not. And I think that's what's most frustrating about it. That on top of the fact that it did really influence the game, whether or not you want that to be the sort of focal point, because Dallas was firing on all cylinders offensively, and Porzingis has been incredible in the bubble. That was something we didn't talk about prior to last time's game. We talked a little bit about Porzingis and his up and down sort of regular season play, but we didn't actually talk about how good he's been in these past seeding games and whatnot, averaging over 30 points a game, multiple 35 plus point games. He's been really good, and he was good against the Clippers. And when he went out,
he was a mismatch problem for them that they didn't know how to solve, because he could pick and pop. He could take advantage on the inside, against smaller guys like Harrell and whatnot. And it was, and like I said, it stinks that it becomes a story, but I looked it up. I mean, it was 71-66 before the technical. The Mavericks were up 5, and they were rolling. That nothing had changed since halftime. The double text happened. He's gone. And by the end of the quarter, it's 87-82 Clippers. Not the biggest flip in the world, but enough of a flip. And then, Kawhi and Paul George were able to lock it down. But it was tough. Luka didn't have that second, star to go at Kawhi and Paul George with. So it just stunk, because it was otherwise we had a really fun game. Luka, he had a lot of turnovers. They get 11, which is obviously you don't want that ever. But it was a combination of first playoff game, and the Clippers made some plays. They stripped him a couple times. It's Kawhi, it's Beverly, it's George.
One of the best defensive teams in the league, yeah.
Right, but he was also phenomenal when he wasn't turning it over. He was phenomenal on offense. I mean, he
42 points. It was a rookie. Most points by a debut in playoffs, right?
Yes. Yep. And he was absolutely phenomenal. Kawhi had a really good game and closed it out. Paul George played well. So, you had a lot of fun things, and it was still a close game. I mean, the Clippers only pulled away on that Paul George 3 there with, less than 2 minutes to go. So it was still anybody's game late, and you just have to wonder, could Dallas have stolen that game and, stolen some of that momentum? Because how it is you get a win, it's we can beat these guys. These guys are the favorites, and we just beat them game 1. That changes the whole mindset. So it'll be interesting to see how, they come back. We'll see how Porzingis, plays. I'm not worried about him obviously getting any more technicals or anything, but just in terms of him mentally, can he block everything out. Don't take anything personal with the refs, and just go out there. And can he keep up his strong play, because he has been very valuable? It's a tough matchup for the Clippers. They're going to be able to do their best on Luka, but Porzingis is a 7-footer who can shoot threes, and they have nobody that can defend that. So I'll be really interested to see what they can do in game 2.
Here's why I think Dallas will still continue the momentum. Whether or not they win is a different story, but they're definitely going to give the Clippers a fight because Rick Carlisle is just such a good coach that he's going to recognize that mismatch. Yes. He's going to exploit it time and time and time again. And you make the great point that Kristaps should now understand that he shouldn't be going out there yelling at the refs and yelling at other teammates, trying to push one of the Morris twins or whatever he's doing out there. Like, just don't do that, and you'll be fine. You'll at least give them a fight. And for this Dallas team to even give this Clippers team a fight here in their first playoff outing, with Luka and Kristaps as their core. That's
both making their debuts. It's not like these are veterans. These are two guys making their playoff debuts against Kawhi Leonard, who's a top 30 player all time, and Paul George, who has a ton of playoff experience, and Doc Rivers. But I'm sorry, continue.
No, that's fine. I was just going to say that, that's something that Dallas fans should be very excited about, just seeing the way that they played before that happened. And, I don't think a lot of people are necessarily picking Dallas to win this series, but if they can steal a couple of games, it's just sort of that growth that they really need. And we talked about these seeding games feeling a little bit like playoff games for that Dallas team, and it seems to have shaped them in the right direction to set them up for some sort of success here in the postseason. And I really liked what I saw from them, despite the Porzingis situation. I didn't like that, but I think it was exciting. I think it was really exciting. Most important question of the game: what was Boban saying to Kristaps in the sort of back alley when he was getting thrown out? Because I was trying to figure that. I was like, are they pointing at each other with Boban like pointing him to his bedroom? Like, what's going on there? Because I don't know.
He probably said it's hard out here for us 7-footers or something.
Yeah,
like that.
Right. Yeah. Boban actually playing solid too. Like you got to give him some credit stepping in. Like, because he's not the kind of player that would match up well against this Clippers team, being so like slow and not being nearly as agile as Kristaps is, but he's been good in the bubble, I think, and he's been good for this Dallas.
He had 8 rebounds and he was +5 in his minutes. It was only 13 minutes, but if he can give Rick Carlisle 13 minutes a game that are positive, where they're not getting smoked with him on the court, that's something that I know Carlisle is going to take. Quick, not to circle all the way back to my Lakers team at the beginning, I do want to point out Caruso did not have a good game offensively, but the guy's he's +12. I don't know how he does it.
Was he really?
He's a plus-minus god. He just, I don't know, he finds a way. He didn't play that well, but for whatever reason, when they're on the court, when he's on the court with whoever, they're just better. Now the Clippers they tip off in 20 minutes. It looks like the only other game that we have now is, it looks like Boston's going to take care of Philly. They're up 25, just starting the fourth.
Well, let's talk about Hayward being out for 4 weeks here because of the ankle injury. It is big. We sort of talked about that Boston-Philly matchup and how Boston more or less would have a handle on it, despite the fact that Philly did show up in that game 1. Does this swing this series at all for you, or do you think it's going to come to bite them a little bit more later on, depending on how long Gordon Hayward is actually out for?
Yeah, it's a long-term thing. It's not right now. As evidence, they're up 21, 9 minutes to go in the fourth, so they seem to be handling it well. They just have too much outside shooting, and Philly, as it's well documented, doesn't have enough. But it's going to hurt them against a team like Toronto, where their defense is going to make Boston work, and you're going to have at least 4, hopefully 5 guys that can spread the floor and make plays, and that's something that Hayward has always been very good at. He's a good ball handler. He's a very incredibly smart player. He kind of knows like what he's good at and what he's not now, especially with like the injuries he's had. He doesn't try to do too much anymore. And so he, it's just a good third ball handling guard behind, Tatum and Brown. And he's a better third option as a scorer than like Marcus Smart. Like, I'm worried that like Marcus Smart is going to be like, oh, those are my shots now. That's not going to necessarily end well for Boston. But I think it's going to really hamper them against Toronto because of, they were going to need everything with him healthy to beat Toronto. I thought it was going to be a close series, but I was going to pick Toronto. Now, if they get there, I just don't think they're going to have enough. Kemba is still, he's got the knee thing. That's like every day I think that's going to be his career tagline. He's got the knee issues, unfortunately. Yeah. So they're going to have to replace Hayward's minutes with, Ogilvy, Brad Wanamaker, and then like, they just aren't good enough, especially in the playoff series. They're not going to be enough to make a difference, and they may in fact end up hurting Boston, which it stinks, because you have 2 great young pieces in Tatum and Brown who are both playing really well. I think Tatum's got 30 tonight again, and that's against like Thibault and those guys. Like he's going out against really good players, so it just kind of stinks that it's something like that's going to get in the way of them possibly making the Eastern Conference Finals or the finals. But yeah, it is what it is. I mean, the injuries are part of it, and we'll see what they can do. I mean, you never know. Like Tatum has, shown that he's a star, so we'll see if he can put the team, on his back, as the phrase goes. And we'll see what they can do. Toronto, speaking of them, they escaped today. Brooklyn hung around for a while.
Brooklyn was up for a good portion of that game.
Yeah. And Joe Harris, I guess, leaving the bubble for, it just said non-COVID personal reasons. So I'm assuming it's something family related. It's usually,
let's hope everything is all right.
Yeah, hopefully everything's okay. But Toronto still getting things done, and then Utah came out today and just smoked Denver. Pretty much beat them wire to wire. I mean, it wasn't close.
Donovan Mitchell having another great game. I'm not dropping 57, but having a pretty good all-around game for the most part. You bring up one player leaving the bubble, another significant piece leaving the bubble today. Will Barton going to rehab.
Mm-hmm.
That's a.
He just seems like he's just not ready, which is concerning.
That's Denver's done. Will Barton was the best player on this Denver team early on this season when Jokic was fat and unhealthy. Will Barton was carrying this Denver team.
Are you going out? Is this the Raj fork? Stick a fork in them? They're done? Is that how we're doing?
No, not in the Nuggets. Not in the Nuggets. Not in the Nuggets in the first round. But I think the Nuggets championship.
Any like 2% chance to beat the Clippers and whatnot. Done.
That's not happening. Without their best two-way player, he is their best two-way player. He was incredible at the beginning of this season. He was completely carrying that Denver team. If he's not back, they're 100%. And I think they'll still escape Utah. It's going to be a much closer series than I thought. I think I had predicted 5 games for that one. It's probably going to go to 6 or 7 now. I think Denver will still escape because I still think Jokic is easily the best player in this series, and Murray needs to just find his consistency and he'll be fine. And I think that Denver will hopefully win this series. But second round, they're done. Without Will Barton, this team cannot win a playoff series.
I will say one thing that's nice, and you never know what the team's roster is going to look like year to year. But it just seems like, I think Paul Millsap's contract is up this year, and they can just slide Michael Porter right in there because he seems pretty ready. He had what did he have finished 28 today, 10 of 17 shooting, 6 of 9 from 3, and was the only Nuggets starter that wasn't minus 10 or worse. So it seems like he's really, I mean, this bubble has been a huge boost for him. I remember thinking, honestly, I never thought he was going to get off the ground. I thought a guy coming out of college with back issues already at that age, I thought he was going to be in serious trouble. But he's really, I mean, he's proved me completely wrong, and he's proved a lot of people wrong. So even though the Barton thing is a negative, they at least have this, even if it's for looking towards next year, they could have a really good third piece, and you could have that Murray, Porter Jr., and Jokic triumvirate there. So something, silver lining, I guess.
Well, see, the big thing about Porter is he's not going to play any more defense than Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic are. He's long. He's long, so he might cause a few more problems for other teams, but Will Barton is just such a good two-way player. Gary Harris is the best defender on that team probably since Paul Millsap is sort of on the downside. But the other piece that's sort of been good for them this season, and the combination of Michael Porter Jr., Bol as long as he can sort of stay on the floor as well, and then Jeremy Grant being a massive, massive pickup for them in the offseason, that sort of fills the offensive and the defensive with Grant kind of being the two-way, and then Michael Porter Jr. really giving you the offensive spurts, and Bol probably giving you offensive spurts as well. But I think Jeremy Grant makes up enough ground on the defensive end to cover for both of them when he does come off the bench, and he can play heavy minutes too because he's still young, he's still very athletic. So that's kind of why I do have hope for Denver going forward. But Will Barton does have to be healthy for that to be the case. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Denver make some moves this offseason as well, maybe getting rid of a player like Gary Harris. Just because I think that they're still missing that one sort of piece, especially defensively. And Harris has never been able to stay healthy, so that's been a problem for them as is. But yeah, I mean, it showed today. It showed today where they were really lacking, especially on that defensive end, because Utah picked them apart every part of the floor. It was really depressing to watch. As somebody who supports the Nuggets as a big Jokic fan, this was very tough.
Now, when you say, just a quick circle back to the whole Denver making a move, are you talking like making like a big splash, or are we talking like immediately? Because the name that they were always linked to was like, would they go like a 2 or 3 for 1 trade for Drew Holiday, who seemed like to be the hot name linked there, or somebody of that caliber? Would he be like the guy I don't want to say put them over the top because we're too far away to even discuss that.
Yeah,
but would that be him, or is there somebody even bigger that they could possibly shoot for? Like, I don't know.
I think it is a Drew Holiday because with Paul Millsap being out, Paul Millsap was your playoff guy, and now your guys still, they have a year of playoff experience. That's not a whole lot. And Drew Holiday, I guess, doesn't have that much either because he's got a couple years with New Orleans, but he also had a couple years in Philly, if I'm not mistaken, as well, playoff experience. But he's still a vet, and he's very reliable. That's sort of the ideal situation, I think, if Denver to make a move. That would be the ideal pickup. I don't necessarily see New Orleans trying to unload Drew Holiday right now, just because I feel like they want him to sort of mentor all the young guys that are there.
Of course.
But that type of player, a defensive guard who's just a step above Gary Harris, if you package Gary Harris with even somebody like a Millsap, if you sign him to a short-term deal and then ship him off, that could be a very good move for Denver, where they could pick up some very valuable assets. I think it's just something that we do need to keep our eyes on this offseason.
Well, and with that trade, I remember the rumors were going around throughout the season, and they was something of like Gary Harris, a first-round pick, and like Michael Porter Jr. Everyone's like, well, I don't know if you could deal Michael Porter now because he's clearly shown the potential, but it'll be interesting to see what they do here, in this series and beyond, and then possibly the off season. I'm sure we're probably running close on time here. Do you want to quickly just touch on? I think the only ones we missed would be Miami, Indiana, and then Houston, Oklahoma City.
2 boring games. That's all I have to really say.
Harden played very well. I didn't see all of it, but 37 and 11. He was efficient. Anything, basically everything you could ask for without Westbrook, which I think he deserves. We give him a lot of flack for things, but I think he deserves credit where credit's due. It seemed like he played a really good game. SGA, a little bit of a rough welcoming, only 9 points in 35 minutes. Chris Paul, almost a triple-double. I give him credit. I thought he was cooked for this year. And then, I said Miami is a little bit more boring because there's not as much like big-name talent in those series. But Jimmy played really well, got the best of his nemesis, TJ Warren, once again. I think he was even like chirping at him on the sideline. So it's at least we have that. Some mini fireworks. We'll see if anything else happens. But
it's a shame that series is not going to be more interesting because they have the potential to be. And we talked about that on the preview a bit, so I don't want to reiterate too much. But I think Miami is kind of showing exactly what we expected them to have a pretty good handle on Indiana.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
Yeah, but that's all I have. Do you have any other games or any other things that you want to touch on real quick before we get out of here?
No, I think we covered a lot. A lot of things. We'll see what we have on Friday. By this time Friday, we'll have another Clippers-Mavs game. We'll have the Lakers-Portland tomorrow night. We'll have another Bucks game. Mike Conley
might be back. Mike Conley's back in the bubble, yeah.
Yep, so they will have played by this time Friday. So it'll be interesting to see if Portland. I think that's the thing is, can the Lakers and the Bucks come out and make the necessary adjustments on both ends of the ball? Can LeBron and AD assert themselves? Can the Bucks figure out DJ Augustine's pick and roll? We'll see. We'll have a lot to discuss, and then we'll see here in about 7 minutes. You got Luka and Porzingis versus Kawhi and Paul George, which I will try not to miss a second of because I think that's going to be another phenomenal game. I think we're just going to see.
Got a prediction?
Prediction. Skip, this is tough for me because I love Luka Doncic like a brother. No, I was Clippers 120 because they didn't play that great a defense. So Clippers 120, Mavs 117. Luka's going to miss a 3 at the buzzer. We're going to come right down to the wire. I'm going to get real specific.
It's funny because I had a very similar score and situation. I actually had Porzingis making a buzzer beater to win 121-120 in my head. So we're actually pretty in line there. We're in line a lot more often than we actually think we are. It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird as much as we disagree on other stuff.
And I don't know if we need to make a prediction for Ashmere because I know she's been watching this. Did you have any prediction for the Warriors tonight? Oh, wait, never mind. Sorry.
They're going to lose to the Cavs. But that'll bring us to a close for this episode. Thanks everybody who joined us. You can find our social medias down there. Please be sure to follow Nuts and Bolts Sports website as well as on all social media. And we'll be back with Friday with hopefully no more upsets. I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Good night, folks.